What's up guys, it's Aaronitmar. So the other day I was looking at the Smash Ultimate character select screen and kind of just stopping and reflecting on just how much content we have in this game. I mean, it is a ridiculous amount. And then that made me think about the very first entry and just how little content that game actually had. And that got me thinking about things that weren't meant to be seen in the game, that weren't finished or were scrapped, and that we just weren't supposed to know about, but because we're in the year 2019, we have discovered. So I only want to talk about things that are hard confirmed, either by developer interviews or by actual data that we can find within the game itself. But first, for today's video, I've partnered with ProGuides, who has just launched an entire section devoted to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate that you can go and watch right now. They've also partnered with Zero, who has created an entire course to help you get better at Smash. On top of that, they have a ton of lessons, stats, tools, and coming up is a custom 24-hour, 7 days a week coaching program. I've personally checked out Zero's course before it was released, and I have to say it's incredibly detailed and it's absolutely well worth your time. Thank you so much to ProGuides for sponsoring this video. Please check out their link in the description if you are at all interested in getting better at Smash. And with that, let's jump into the beta and hidden content for Super Smash Bros. 64. So by this point, everyone sort of knows the story of Smash 64's development, so I'm not going to bore you with a ton of detail here, but I don't think it would be a complete video if I didn't mention Dragon King: The Fighting Game. This was the working title of what would come to be Smash 64. However, in Dragon King, they simply had fairly featureless characters, and it was more of a way of developing the engine and getting the gameplay down than actually focusing on the characters. Masahiro Sakurai and Satoru Iwata developed this as a side hobby, and the story goes that Sakurai thought using Nintendo characters would increase the charm of the game and make it more welcoming to players. Nintendo higher-ups rejected the idea, but the two continued to use them in the hopes that showing a usable demo would change their mind, which of course it inevitably did. Dragon King was never really available in any kind of a playable state, and there's no footage available. The only thing we have are these few screenshots. But with Dragon King now Super Smash Bros., let's start small and take a look at some of the beta stages that had tiny adjustments prior to the final game. Remember, this game had only 9 versus mode stages, so the adjustments were very minimal. Many stages shown off in pre-release images had minor updates to them in the final cut, such as model sizes being slightly adjusted, textures and colors being changed, or digging up and planting some brand new flowers. But Smash 64 also has some really cool scrapped stages, but I guess a better way to describe it is probably that they were just testing stages. The first stage is named Small, and the layout of the stage is pretty identical to Dreamland, with of course some minor tweaks here and there. The background is also the same used on Dreamland, as is the base of the stage with its old pineapple look. This is basically just assumed to be the testing or an early stage for Dreamland itself, though naturally it doesn't have wispy or more of the Kirby-ish aspects to it. It may have been used to test the 3-platform layout alongside the stage's actual shape, but then when it came time for the actual Dreamland stage, they found it easier to start on a blank canvas. We'll never really know, it's kinda just an interesting duplicate. The other stage is called New, and this is absolutely meant to be a testing stage in my mind, and it's even flagged in the game as being earlier than Small, the previous stage. New has a very random layout, with platforms and walls placed randomly, a very oblong looking shape off to the side, and above all, several invisible walls. Also, these flowers are going crazy, look at them go. I'd be quite surprised if this stage was actually any kind of a real attempt at a possible stage, because it really just seems like they dumped objects here to see how it interacted with both the environment and the players. But the meat and potatoes of Smash has always been which characters will get in. It's pretty wild to think about a world where Smash was coming out and there wasn't a huge internet sensation guessing who would be in, and a whole host of reaction videos about each and every edition. Of course, we got the original 12 veterans, but in classic Smash fashion, a few characters were planned who needed to be scrapped. The first one is Bowser, who Miyamoto cites in an interview as being one of the characters who will be present in Smash. Now, it's possible that Miyamoto simply misspoke about the characters to be added, but of all the characters he mentioned, Bowser's the only one who wasn't in the final game. Furthermore, Sakurai himself later answered a question from a fan on the Smash 64 website, which after release he often did. This person asked if Bowser and King Dedede were playable because, in the classic 90s and early 2000s style, everyone's friend on the playground always heard some big secret about the latest game. Sakurai denied that either character was in the game, however he goes on to say that they were both partially complete but ended up being scrapped. So that's Bowser and now a second character, King Dedede, that were intended to be featured in the game. But we're not done yet. Mewtwo was also planned to appear in Smash 64, but was also cut. Again, on the Smash website, a poll was run entitled If There Was a Smash 2, asking players who they'd like to see in a sequel. It was basically the very first Smash ballot. Among the top 10 was Bowser, King Dedede, and Mewtwo. Sakurai actually footnotes at the bottom of the page stating that all three of these characters were planned to be featured in the first game, but they were all cut. It's really unclear how far along development for any of them were, but they were at the very least intended to be seen in the game. Now, the final character planned and then scrapped was Marth. That's right, we have 10 Marths in Ultimate now to make up for the fact that Marth was scrapped in Smash 64. In a book titled The Making of Fire Emblem, 25 Years of Development Secrets, a section was dedicated to the franchise's inclusion in Smash, and Sakurai himself discusses the development of these characters. Sakurai dives right in, saying that the design of Marth's playstyle was intended for Smash 64, and it was meant to be a direct counter to Link. While Link is a sword user, he has many items, and on top of that, his sword movements are far more strong and direct. With Marth, he planned a far more technical use of the sword to be reflected in his moveset. Link was sort of forced to be a sword user, while Marth was sort of raised and taught the art of the sword. On top of this, Sakurai stated that of the franchises popular at the time of 64's development, Fire Emblem was very high, with multiple popular titles in Japan. Unfortunately, due to development time, they were unable to include Marth. In fact, many features were barely finished by their deadlines for the full game. The 4 secret characters that we did get were chosen because they could reuse many of the same animations from other fighters. So Marth would have taken too much work, he had to get cut, and it wouldn't be until Melee that he finally debuted. It's common knowledge by now that Final Smashes were intended to debut all the way back in Smash 64, but of course it wouldn't be until Brawl that they did. Some voice work was done for these ultimate movesets before the idea was scrapped. Kirby has unused clips that we can only assume are for his Final Smash. Fox says, "Ike!" which means come on or let's go, and it probably would have been used when calling his R-Wing. Pikachu has 2 overpowered screams that are very similar to the ones that he uses during his Final Smash today, but they couldn't have been for Volt Tackle back in Smash 64 because that move didn't exist yet. So it's very likely it could have been for something very similar in his Final Smash. Captain Falcon has his classic, "Come on, Blue Falcon!" and these are almost exactly the same as his use in his Final Smash. And lastly, Ness calls out PK Starstorm, which is his Final Smash today and was clearly intended to be his Final Smash from the very beginning. PK Starstorm! Aside from this, we have just a handful of UI that got changed for the full release. 2 characters have changed series symbols. First is Link, who had an upside-down piece of the Triforce, presumably the Triforce of Courage. This of course got changed to be the whole Triforce. The other is Yoshi, who had a similar egg shape that did not have any spots. In the final version, there are see-through spots on the symbol. Crates didn't have the Smash Bros symbol, instead they were blank, and the character select screen's hidden characters had a totally different UI, among other things. Finally, there's a yellow Pikachu and a yellow Jigglypuff stock icon that exists in the game, but it isn't used for anything, possibly hinting at the intended inclusion of a 4th alternate for both characters. Because their costumes were all the same, just with different colors, this was really easy, so it's very likely this was possible. But that is everything that I could find for Smash 64's beta and unused content, or at least everything that I found significant enough to mention in a video. With N64 games being so small, the amount of unused data is kind of on the low side, but trust me, there is a huge amount of data in the sequel games, so if you'd like to see videos on those, please let me know down in the comments. And I'm also really curious what you guys have to say about the 4 cut characters that we can confirm were actually planned for the game, and those were Bowser, King Dedede, Mewtwo, and Marth. How do you think their moveset would have worked in Smash 64, and do you think that we would still have a similar character today in 2019 if those characters started in Smash 64 rather than Melee or Brawl or whatever game they started in? King Dedede, I think, may have been the most different if we were talking simply about moveset, because There were quite a few Kirby games between Smash 64 and Brawl's release. For Smash 64 and Melee, there was a pretty short period, and 3 of the 4 characters that were cut from Smash 64 showed up in Melee. King DDD really just has a lot more to pull from because he has that huge span of time between 64 and Brawl. So Bowser, Marth, and Mewtwo all, I think, would have been probably about the same in Smash 64 as they were in Melee. Mewtwo was mostly based on the anime portrayal of Mewtwo in the movies and the actual show, so I think that he probably would have been the same. I'm not entirely sure on all of Bowser's moveset, so I'm not sure how much was pulled from certain games and what was entirely Smash original, but I do have to think that he would probably be the same. He just probably wouldn't have that Bowser grapple. And finally, Marth comes from a series that is turn-based, just like Mewtwo did, but without any real anime or any kind of full visuals besides the sprite animation, so I think his would have been mostly Smash original as well, and probably would have been very close to what we got in Melee. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please make sure to leave a like and be sure to subscribe, and I will see you all next time.